What's going on, guys? I am Ramsey Said What. You may also know me as Jonathan C. Ramsey. I usually say that in reverse, but whatever. Thank you for tuning into the A-Side, B-Side podcast, the branded podcast by What's the Movement.net. As always, rate, subscribe, review, tell your friends to do the same. Sometimes you guys are here for me. Other times you're here for my great guests. So I'd like my guest today to introduce herself because I don't want to butcher your last name. I've heard it pronounced so many different ways, and I didn't want to missay it.
Hi, I'm Kathy Iandoli, also known as Cat 3000, and apparently I write.
Yes. So if you guys aren't under a rock, there's a big book out right now called Baby Girl, better known as Aaliyah. And her music's out on streaming platforms now. But our guest is said author, Amazon bestseller. I'm not sure if it's a New York bestseller. Probably will be soon.
Fingers crossed. Yeah.
So how's the reception been thus far from the people?
With every person who reads the book, I think that when you see a book like this, you approach it from maybe two very polarizing perspectives, right?
Yeah.
Either you're incredibly skeptical or incredibly excited. And I'm thrilled that the incredibly excited remain excited through the book, and the incredibly skeptical are proved incredibly wrong. And pleasantly, right? So the reception has been great for the people who have read the book. And I'm getting just so many people who are DMing me and reaching out over email just to express that. And it's been just amazing. I've just been very excited about it. And just when you put this stuff out, you don't know what the response is going to be. Yeah. You don't know if people are going to like it. It's like sending your child to school. So with a book like this, with a subject matter, someone who is so revered by myself and the world, it was scary putting it out, but hearing just all the wonderful feedback, it just makes me really happy.
Yeah. I haven't gotten to it yet. There was a delay on my copy. I finally got it a couple of days ago, and I just haven't had the time to get to it. So I'm really, really excited about reading it. It's out everywhere now. You can find a book. So definitely everybody, if you're listening, please go out and get it. I'm also going to put the Amazon link in the description. So if you're driving, wait till you pull over and get where you need to be before you put it in your cart. Please do not die on my hands. I would feel horrible. Yeah. So this is your fourth book, if I remember correctly.
But yeah, I mean, technically my third released.
Okay.
Out of what's going to be 5 by the top of next year.
Oh, so nice.
Yeah. So this is number 3. Commissary Kitchen was the first one with Prodigy. Then God Save the Queens.
Yeah.
And now Baby Girl.
Okay. Well, that answered my next question. But so let's actually talk about all right. So you're also a hip hop journalist. You covered music, mainstream and otherwise. Yes. So we kind of talked about it in the emails off record, but like, what is it like transitioning into book writing? Because I imagine that's much different.
When I first started book writing and working with P, God rest his soul.
Yeah,
it was a different experience jumping into that book, because Commissary Kitchen was kind of a condensed book where I was writing from his perspective and his voice and just my conversations with him. And it was it's a smaller book because it's a cookbook. So that didn't feel as heavy of a lift as going into God Save the Queens. So when you go into a book like God Save the Queens, which was in between 75,000 and 80,000 words,
yeah,
of someone like me who on a given day can write 3,000 words. But in my head, the way I rationalized it, like I tried to be super mathematic about these things. I tried to take the word count that I could write every day and apply that to an entire book once all the research and interviews had been done. Mm-hmm. And I was so incorrect. Like with the next projects that I'm working on, I have to just cut it out. Like I have to stop thinking that writing a book is anything like writing an article. And I can see why so many music journalists, especially, end up writing these books of essays where each chapter is like an article, mm-hmm. right? And it's completely separate from the chapter before or the chapter after. Like it's the subject matter is siloed, right? Mm-hmm. And I get why, because we're so used to getting that piece done and then you're done. And mm-hmm. when I was doing God Save the Queens, and there had to be obviously a thread of continuity because you're going through 4 decades that hadn't actually been covered before ever, as it pertained to women in hip hop. So I was like going through it, and in my head I was like, okay, so should I just do articles? Like, it was a bizarre experience. And then when you're talking about a biography like Baby Girl, that's another entirely different experience because you're trying to tell a story mm-hmm. using real facts. And then you're talking to people off record who still wanted to provide context to the subject matter. So you have to find a way of threading this all together and then use archival footage to move the story along. So that was completely different as well. And it was, I thought that when I was done with God Save the Queens, or even done with Baby Girl too, I thought I was going to be completely done with writing articles. Like that was my thing for a little bit, where I was just like, I'm just going to write books. I'm just going to do my books and do this. And I found myself like gravitating toward writing an article again, because I like the idea of doing this kind of isolated chapter on a subject matter. And what ended up happening was, when I did some journalism work over the last month or two, my book writing experience actually helped my journalism experience, but I wouldn't necessarily say that my journalism experience helped my book writing experience. If anything, it was like baptism by fire when I went into book writing. But now that when going into writing articles, I'm like, oh, this is good. I like doing this. Maybe I should do this again. And I don't know.
Is it the length of it? Because, all right. So like, I think the longest piece I may have written for a platform might've been 5,000 words. So like 70, 80,000 words seems like very daunting to me, you know?
It can be, because there's a thesis, right? There's a central theme. Mm-hmm. God Save the Queens is different because it's one particular subject matter broken up into several players mm-hmm. in that arena. So that's not as daunting, because each chapter was like a new experience, right? Mm-hmm. With Baby Girl, you're talking about 22 years of life, 7 years of a career, and then the coverage of the 20 years after passing, right? And there's a lot of space to fill with facts, but you can find yourself sounding repetitive sometimes in certain things, especially mm-hmm. when the experiences had changed, but the reasons didn't change. So, going into Aaliyah's history as R&B music had shifted, mm-hmm. Aaliyah was continuously innovating. So that was the undercurrent the whole time. So then you're kind of just showing what was going on mm-hmm. as Aaliyah still innovating, which mm-hmm. was difficult to kind of put together in a way where you remained fresh in what it was that you were talking about. And it's a good problem to have when you have such a brilliant artist, mm-hmm. right?
Yeah.
Because Aaliyah was so mysterious, it wasn't like creating an entire book of all these gotcha facts, like, oh, did you know, that kind of thing, because that would have made no sense, because the whole point was to create this very well-rounded view of an incredible human being who made incredible music, who was an incredible actor, who had a big heart, who was a survivor, who was strong. There were so many different parts to who Aaliyah was and still is to the world today. But when you're trying to put it into a book and break it up by chapters, how do you do that with such an incredible, well-rounded being? And it was difficult, but again, it was a good problem to have because of just who she was and what she contributed to the planet.
So I listened to your Nadeska interview and there was something I thought that was shout out. There was something I thought that was very interesting that you said. You said like the kind of commonality between everybody that you spoke to. Everybody said like she was such a sweetheart, and that was like the one common thing. Is there anything else for? So I haven't read it yet, but for readers that haven't read it yet, is there something else that you think that we'll all kind of find that we didn't know about Aaliyah?
I think we didn't give Aaliyah enough credit as a musician. I think we regarded Aaliyah so many times in history as a vessel for musicians, right? Yeah. She was kind of like the person who embodied whatever vision the people she worked with had in mind. And she was able to then just bring it forth. That's not necessarily true. Aaliyah definitely knew how to bring out the best in the creative team that was working with her. But there's a responsibility as a real musician. Should be the responsibility as a real musician. But the responsibility as a real musician to take these perfect elements, the best parts, assemble them as part of your own, but then take it and make your interpretation of what it is that they were trying to get across. And we always made it seem even when you had reviews written about Aaliyah and all these things, it just seemed like Aaliyah's hand wasn't in what she was doing. And that's not true. She was a musician. Her voice was the instrument. There's a couple stories in the book where you are surprised. So when she was going into making 1 in a Million, she was warming up in the studio singing opera.
Yeah, I think I read that somewhere. Yeah.
And then the photographer, Eddie O'Cherry, tells a story at the end of the book where when she would she ummed on key. So her voice was always in key. And that's someone who just lives and breathes and is music.
Yeah, like the literal practice of like just speech is musical. Yeah.
So that was something that I think that I was pleasantly surprised to learn. I knew that she had written a couple of songs. I remember Came to Give Love, she wrote, and Death of a Player, she wrote with her brother. I knew that there were situations where she had a hand in the production and the writing and just didn't take credit. But I didn't know just how much she did in the studio, where she would get a reference track, let's say for 1 in a Million particularly, and then would go into the booth and would have the lyrics in mind, but would still kind of freestyle it. Like, you know, those actors who, when they have a script, but the script isn't necessarily what they deliver.
Yeah.
You know, because they start to embody that character. It was the same thing. And then when you moved into the Aaliyah project, that was an entirely different experience because she was working alongside Static Major, who was writing the songs with her. So it was a very collaborative. God rest his soul too. Yeah. Another genius gone way too soon.
Yeah. You know, it's crazy. Like, even like, I mean, now her music's out on streaming. So I think like there's a younger generation that may not have had access to her that's about to for the first time. So, but like, I just think it's kind of crazy how modern her music sounds like in 2021. Like any of her music sounds like anything that could have come out, you know, like recently. And she passed in 2001, was it? Yeah.
Well, today's risk is tomorrow's normal, tomorrow's norm. Because you have to, and if you're going back the 25 years to when the risks were first taken, right? That set the standard for what was going to become the standard for pop music and R&B music. So that's what she was doing. She was setting a standard by taking a risk. And that's why everything sounds so relevant, because most artists out have taken pages from her book.
Yeah, absolutely.
Since she's been gone.
Yeah. And you could hear the influence in everybody's music, even outside of the direct samples of her music. Yes. I can't tell you how many times Drake has sampled her, let alone anybody else. But yeah, that's that's a perspective I never really thought about. So, all right. So you've written for like every publication in the world. How do you feel about journalism now? And I probably come off as like a very, very angsty blog era journalist when I feel about, like, I guess, reading headlines and clickbait. So I wanted to get another perspective from somebody else. Do you feel that it's the actual storytelling is going down the drain, or what do you think?
Well, it's a loaded question.
A little bit. I'm sorry.
I think what we're competing with right now is we're competing with egos everywhere. There's the ego of the writer. The writer ego has gone completely out of control. We used to be the flies on the wall. You know, now we're stuck with cameras in our faces, or else you don't go anywhere.
Yeah.
Right.
Thus I do a podcast too.
Right. Because because that's what you have to do nowadays. That wasn't something that I never wanted to do. I wanted to be the person in the corner with the recorder observing and then going home and writing what it was that I just observed. Yeah. So the idea of having a camera in front of me has always been pretty uncomfortable. It wasn't where I was going. It's something that I've become adjusted to. And media training artists has actually helped me get in front of a camera and not seem like a total but you're dealing with the writer ego now that is completely different from what it was that we started with. Then you have kind of like the artist ego, where it seems like artists don't like to be told anything critical.
Yeah,
right? There's no
for sure.
No critiques are supposed to be allowed. And the essence of music criticism has always been this kind of divided argument. Like, do you have a right to critique someone's art?
Yeah. Like who gave us the audacity?
And who gave us the audacity? And I think with music critics, over time, their opinions, when they leaned toward the negative, were dismissed. But then when they leaned towards too far into the positive, were equally dismissed because of favoritism. So it became this kind of weird situation where critics couldn't be critics.
Yeah.
And artists couldn't create music that could be theoretically judged or broken down, dissected, explained, expressed, whatever. So with regard to storytelling, because you have artists who are so enamored with the idea of not having to hear anything negative, they then don't even want to talk to you to get a good story, because then the fear is, what happens if you misquote me in the interest of clickbait?
Yeah.
And what happens? I don't want to be part of your website or magazine's bottom line. I don't want to be part of that. And that's where you're seeing a lot more of as told twos and artists writing their own articles. And this goes across anything from sports to film, wherever. I don't think that there should be any situation where someone just slams art for the sake of slamming it.
Yeah. Agreed.
But there is something to be said if you hear something and it sounds derivative, or you hear certain songs and you want to talk about an artist's evolution from their first project to their current one. And to not be given that creative freedom to do that makes it a little harder to be a music journalist. So what we're experiencing now are just a lot of people who are just doing interviews on camera or otherwise, mm-hmm. and just getting that exposure for both themselves and the artist with very little room to actually tell stories in a laid out narrative, which is another reason why books are so important right now, because especially when you're doing it with the artist, or at least you're doing it with an artist participation, because there's some control of the narrative, and the goal is not to, well, at least the goal should be not to completely destroy your subject matter.
Yeah.
Like that was something that really confused me with people who hadn't read the Aaliyah book and automatically assumed that for whatever reason I would ever slam her.
Yeah.
When you're such a fan of the artist, I'm such an Aaliyah fan. I've covered Aaliyah for decades. To think that I would ever write a book that would make her look bad,
yeah,
is really just a reflection of what it is that people think the writer has been doing for the last several years. And there's no reverence for the subject matter. There's that assumption that there's no reverence. And that was something that I think was really hurtful as a writer, but as someone who was such an Aaliyah fan, to think that was like the knee-jerk reaction was, why would you write a book just slamming her? And it's like, yeah, exactly. Why would I do that? Yeah. And so many people who went in thinking that was going to be the thing. And there's people who like read the book and by the end hit me and said, oh my God, you really love her, huh? And it's like, duh.
Yeah. I spent time of my life in I couldn't write about anything I wasn't passionate about. That's first and foremost.
Exactly.
It would show.
Exactly. That's the thing. I don't know how I could ever, this is something I've never done in my 20 plus years of journalism, ever write about something just begrudgingly. Mm-hmm. It just doesn't feel right. There's a writer voice when you're writing, when you don't like how you sound, and it sounds different from when you think you're in your bag.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, I know exactly.
I would never want to put that out into the world of me not sounding like I'm in my bag.
Yeah.
Especially for an artist I just love so dearly.
Yeah, it's like 4 people walking in a room. It's like the critics, the artist, the platform, and then the public, and we all have our own agenda. And or maybe not agenda so much, but an agenda. Like the writer wants to tell the truth. The artist wants to tell their truth. The public wants to hear what they want to hear.
Yes.
Or they hate it. That might be rude. But yeah, that's wow. This conversation might make me a better writer one day if I ever decide to pick up a pen again. But
you see, because there you go. Like it becomes one of those things. Well, what am I doing it for?
Yeah. I got started doing like indie reviews and college radio at the same time. And, mm-hmm. I've never gone into interviews or anything or reviews with the mindset of, one, I don't want to write about something that's either doesn't sound good or isn't up to par, or I don't want to write about something I don't like. So I don't write bad reviews, but I also write critical reviews. So, and it shouldn't be a slippery slope as it is, as much of a slippery slope as it is.
Yeah. Yeah. And you're also talking about music is so accessible right now.
Mm-hmm. More than ever.
More than ever.
Disregard my cat, by the way.
If you're not able as a music critic to switch back and forth on Spotify, Apple Music, Tidal, whatever it is that you use, and try to listen to a previous project as opposed to the thing that you're reviewing or writing about. If you can't, if that's not a thought in your mind with the accessibility of these things, then you shouldn't be critiquing music, because you have things that we didn't have when I got started back in my day, right? Like you had to have the stack of CDs. I had to listen to the two projects before, because an album review was not just an album review. You're reviewing a catalog when you write an album review.
Yeah.
And that's something that I think has stopped as well, right? Because you also have the artist who's like, don't judge me by my last work, judge me now. And, then you have the fan base who, depending on the aggressiveness of them.
Yeah.
Like, don't judge them for who they used to be. And it's kind of like, you have to show the seeds that were planted, good, bad, or otherwise, to be able to write about just embodied work this next project could be. And I think about, like, for example, Halsey's If I Can't Have Love, I Want Power. You literally have to listen to her other 3 projects to appreciate how far she's come with this project.
Yeah. And to hear the nuances, like,
yes,
in the flashback, if it's not like a direct flashback, but like there's might be a line that references something from an older song. You have to listen to it.
Yeah, you have to. But then there's also the people who try to do like the Flex Olympics, right? Who want to take apart everything and be like, this is a reference to this and this and this. And then before you know it, they're having conversation with themselves and nobody else. So that's how music criticism or even music journalism just gets so strange. And it becomes this kind of, roller coaster ride, because even when you're talking to an artist, I think everybody at some point wants to be the Nardwuar in the situation when they're interviewing the artist.
Yeah, absolutely. Especially if we're fans, Right.
And while the gotcha moments are wonderful, you're not supposed to prove how well you know them. The point is to get the most out of their ability to tell their own story.
Yeah.
You proving that you bought 3 concert tour t-shirts and wore them, or you remember that when they talked about pickles on this song, it was in reference to the first album saying that they wish they had a pickle. Like that kind of like, it's not a contest between you and the artist. And that's the other thing. It's become a contest, because when a journalist has to prove now that they're a brand, they're now competing. They're competing with the person that they're supposed to be giving their all to show their talent. This isn't to show how cool I am. It's to show how talented you are. And thereby, when you read what I wrote, be like, wow, she's also talented. That was the whole point. But now it's like you want to be the most talented person in the room, where this artist is your accessory. And it's like, that's not the point of this.
Yeah. Or friends with the artist.
My goodness. Yeah. Like this, it doesn't matter if they text you.
Oh man, I could complain about the writing game for so long. That just continue to listen to my podcast, guys. I want to talk about God Save the Queens. I know we don't have a lot of time. You got a bunch of things you need to do. So I really appreciated God Save the Queens, because I feel like, and it's such an annoying Twitter topic now, that we only know how to talk about the same 3 rappers now, and it's Cardi B, Nicki, and if we're being contrary, Rhapsody. But like, you talked about Eve. There's and so many other, like, they've been here the whole time. And it's just, it's annoying. So thank you for writing that book, by the way.
Thank you for reading it.
Yeah. But what are your thoughts about I guess like everybody just talking about, or the same stupid conversations?
I think that as much as I want to say things have changed, they really haven't. But what's happening is, on a pop level, because hip hop is pop music now, it's surpassed rock music. It's the dominant genre.
Yeah.
What we're allowing now, and this is wonderful, but what we're allowing female hip hop artists to be superstars, pop stars, just mass icons, right? And we credit artists like Lil' Kim and Lauryn Hill for really starting that, right? Because they were the ones, especially like you had Lil' Kim, who just completely dominated the fashion world. You had Lauryn Hill, who dominated the mainstream. Lil' Kim also made mainstream hits as well, but they came and they were like a hurricane, and they just created. And then you move something like 10 years past when they first came out. Right. I mean, and then the beauty of it was an artist like Lil' Kim still continues to be the hurricane. She's still out there and a force. Right. But what you experience after that is now, because hip hop is pop, right? You're allowing female artists to get to be this level of just massive icon status. And that's where you get the like Cardi B and Nicki Minaj and Megan Thee Stallion and even Lizzo, right?
Yeah.
But what's happening is, from a hip hop standpoint, you're not taking their lyrics and appreciating what it is that they're saying.
Yeah.
You're allowing them to get famous and rich and at the top of the top, but you're doing it without appreciating lyrical integrity.
Yeah. And the art. Yeah.
And the artists have plenty of that. Because then when you talk about lyricism, you go all the way down on the other side and talk about how slept on the lyricists are. Whereas when it comes to men, the top of the top is Jay-Z and you're still quoting him.
Yeah.
The top of the top is Drake. You're still quoting him. The top of the top is Kendrick. You're still quoting him. Top of the top is Cole. You're still quoting him.
Yeah.
And what we're still doing, that we've been doing this whole time, is we're separating the image of the female artist from their lyrical capabilities. And we're trying to make it seem like that cannot exist in one person. Yeah. And it's still happening. And now it's like, okay, go do your thing being, at the top. But then when it talks about lyricism, man, I wish we had more lyrical women out there. Like, and it's like,
like Rod Digger doesn't exist. Like Jean Grey. I could go on forever. I'm sorry.
But also, like Megan Thee Stallion isn't a lyricist.
Yeah.
Like Nicki's not a lyricist. Like Kim's not a lyricist. Like stop pretending that just because there's a level of fame attached, that they're not good at what they do lyrically, and it's all aesthetic and it's the optics of fame. That's not what's happening. There's some gifted lyricists as well. I mean, Rhapsody's doing her thing on the mainstream too, and people still talk about her like she's slept on. And Rhapsody,
Grammy nominated. By the way.
Grammys and TV shows and doing her thing, and it's still kind of like, I wish. Oh, what do you wish? This is a completely successful, incredible artist. Why does I just hate the heavy sigh that's attached to when you speak about women in hip hop. Yeah, women are doing their things, but I wish they wouldn't talk about their bodies so much, or I wish there was more women who were lyrical. And it's like, come on, you like the guys that everybody's falling on their swords for, just always so pensive and prolific with everything they say. Come on now.
Oh man, yeah, you're absolutely right. So we're about to get out of here. Is there anything you want to leave us with before we go? Your socials, where can we find you? Like I said, everybody, the book is in the description, so please click that link when you pull over.
You can find me on my socials at Kat3000, KATH 3000 everywhere. And the next book that's coming is T-Pain, Can I Mix You a Drink?
Ooh.
We had a lot of fun with that one. Pain paired his songs to drinks. and it was just a really fun experience. And you can like drink to his songs, and he tells a couple little stories, and he has some like rule books in there that there's like rules in the book that are cool, and it's a really good. It's across the room from me, so I don't want to get up. Actually, I can show you right now.
Yeah, absolutely.
Here you go. Let me lean in. So, well, this baby girl, better known as Aaliyah, this is out now.
I should have grabbed my copy.
So this is Can I Mix You a Drink? And we have it's.
Oh man, that's dope.
Yeah, so it's black pages with gold, and it's nice hardcover. It's with T-Pain, curated by yours truly, and it's with Maxwell Britton, who is the James Beard Award-winning mixologist. And yeah, so that's next, and then we got Little Kim's The Queen Bee, her memoir, her long-awaited memoir.
Oh,
so.
Nice. Wait, so what's your favorite drink in that book?
Well, and I also have in November. T-Pain's coming out in November too, but I have in November a thing called a deck called the Hip Hop Queens Oracle deck, where I paired women in hip hop to spiritual messages of empowerment, and wrote a book, little guidebook. So that's coming as well.
Oh, nice.
I'm looking right now about which is my favorite drink, because Pain loves like cognac, and I'm like, I can't. Yeah. I'm like, does anybody have a hard seltzer? Let me see. I'm into this one called the Monster Mash, which is shaken with vodka, has Grey Goose, but it also has coconut milk, and I can't drink that. And so forget that one.
So what's the song paired with that?
That's a song he has. It's that. Actually, I like Kiss Kiss. It's made with apple brandy.
Oh, like they're just named after the songs.
Yeah, they're named after the songs.
Man, that's dope.
Yeah, and then we have like little. I don't want to really reveal too much stuff, but there's like he has a couple of the 5 most expensive liquor brands that he's never purchased while he's sober. There's it's a lot of it's a lot of good stuff. But yeah, I shouldn't be just flashing the whole book, but I hope people buy it. It's pretty good.
Guys, look out for that. You're gonna have all of my money soon. No, but seriously, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate you coming on. She said all of her socials. I'm gonna throw those in the description as well. Baby Girl Better Known by Aaliyah is out now everywhere. Please go get that. And thank you guys for listening. This has been the A-Side B-Side podcast, and we're out.